Mother died today, or maybe yesterday, I don't know. With this detached opening, the stranger immediately unsettles the reader. Why doesn't he grieve? Or more importantly, must he? Albert Camus uses this discomfort to introduce us to the absurd. Meursault is an ordinary office worker living in French Algeria. At his mother's funeral, he shows no visible emotion. He does not search for meaning. He notices only physical sensations: heat, fatigue, thirst. Society quietly marks him as abnormal. Days later, Meursault kills an Arab man on the beach. There is no plan, no hatred, no clear motive. His explanation is simple and disturbing. The sun was too intense. This moment reveals the clash between a world demanding reason and a reality that offers none. In court, the murder itself becomes secondary. The prosecution focuses on Meursault's character. Why didn't he cry? Why did he swim the next day? Why does he refuse to pretend life has meaning? Meursault is condemned not only for killing, but for rejecting society's emotional script. For Camus, the absurd is born from the conflict between human longing for meaning and the world's silence. Meursault refuses false comfort. He rejects God, hope, and moral performance. He accepts the world as it is. Facing execution, Meursault experiences clarity. Life has no inherent meaning. Death comes to everyone. In accepting this, he feels peace. Paradoxically, it is the absence of meaning that grants him freedom. The stranger is not nihilistic. It is radically honest. It asks how to live without lies, without borrowed meanings, and without pretending certainty. Now let's explore how Camus' concept of the absurd shapes modern views on morality, personal freedom, and the individual's choice to live honestly within societies that demand meaning.
Hey everyone, today we are diving into a book that's short, sharp, and has been seriously shocking readers since 1942. I'm talking about Albert Camus' masterpiece, The Stranger. It's a novel that still sparks some pretty intense debate, and we're about to break down exactly why. I mean, talk about an opening line. Right from the jump, Camus throws us completely off balance. This isn't just a way to start the story, it's like a mission statement for the main character. It immediately tells you you're dealing with someone who seems totally disconnected from one of the biggest moments in life, and it sets this really unsettling tone for everything to come.
And that protagonist's name is Meursault. He's a shipping clerk in French Algiers, and he kind of just observes the world around him without ever really being a part of it. The whole book really forces us to ask this one critical question. Was Meursault condemned for the crime he committed, or was he condemned for the person he was?
So the story kicks off at his mother's funeral. Now, this is supposed to be a moment of, deep grief. It's a social ritual, and there's a whole set of expectations for how you're supposed to act. But right from the get-go, Meursault does not play by those rules.
And this right here tells you pretty much everything you need to know about Meursault's character. He doesn't think about his mom or his loss. Nope. His entire focus is on what he's physically feeling. The bright white walls, the crushing heat of the sun, the fact that he wants a cigarette. He is living completely in the physical moment, which makes him a total stranger to everyone around him.
You know, society has these unwritten rules for mourning, right? Well, Meursault just shatters every single one of them. The day after burying his mother, he goes for a swim, he starts up a fling with a former coworker named Marie, and then they go see a comedy. For anyone looking in from the outside, this isn't just weird, it's monstrous.
His detachment is it's brutal. Think about it. Love, marriage, these are supposed to be some of the biggest, most meaningful decisions we make in our lives. For Meursault, they're just whatever. It makes no difference to him. His honesty is so absolute that it's completely alienating. He just refuses to pretend to feel things that he doesn't.
All right, so now we get to the part of the book where everything just flips. Part 1 builds up to this really shocking and what seems like a completely motiveless act of violence on a blazing hot beach in Algiers. So here's the quick setup. Meursault's friend, who's described as a man of doubtful morality, gets into a fight with 2 Arab men. Things get heated. A little while later, Meursault goes back to that same spot all by himself, and he finds one of the men just resting by a spring. The sun is blinding, and the man flashes a knife.
And get this, here's Meursault's explanation for what happens next. It's not about rage or self-defense, not in the way we think about it. For him, the trigger isn't the guy or the knife. It's the unbearable, oppressive heat. It's the blinding light bouncing off the blade. The sun itself becomes this physical force that's just pushing him to do something.
So he fires. The man is dead. But then, there's this pause, And Meursault does something completely inexplicable. He fires 4 more times into the body. This act, these 4 extra shots, they completely change everything. It goes from maybe being self-defense to being a cold-blooded killing. And as you're about to see, that detail is going to seal his fate.
Okay, so now we're in the courtroom. But let me tell you, this is no ordinary trial. The murder itself, it almost becomes a side note. What the prosecutor really does is put Meursault's entire personality, his very soul, on trial.
And you can really see just how absurd it all gets here. The prosecution doesn't build its case on the facts of the murder. It builds its case on Meursault's character. The evidence against him is his emotional coldness. He didn't cry at the funeral. He went on a date. He couldn't remember his mom's age. He's not being judged for killing a man. He's being judged for failing to show the right emotion.
And look, don't just take my word for it. Camus himself basically said this was the whole point. Meursault is condemned because he refuses to play society's game. He won't lie, he won't pretend, and for that brutal honesty, society decides he's a monster that has to be eliminated.
So you might be thinking, what's the deal with this guy? Why would Camus create a character like Meursault? Well, to get it, you've got to understand the philosophy he was wrestling with. Let's talk about the absurd.
Now, the absurd isn't the idea that life is meaningless. It's more like the clash. It's the gap between our deep human need to find some kind of meaning in life and a universe that just doesn't offer any. It's like shotting a question out into deep space and just getting total, cold silence back.
And boom, that's Meursault in a nutshell. He's what you might call an absurd hero, because he lives without any illusions of some grander purpose. He doesn't believe in God, or an afterlife, or abstract ideas like love or getting ahead in his career. He lives purely for physical sensations, the feeling of the sun, the water, the taste of a cigarette. And by refusing to pretend there's a deeper meaning, he becomes a stranger in a world that needs everyone to believe in one.
So yeah, with a story like this, it is no surprise at all that people either love it or they absolutely hate it. There is like zero middle ground on this book.
And the numbers totally back that up. We're talking over 1.3 million ratings on Goodreads. And look at this. Almost 3/4 of readers give it a 4 or 5-star review. So clearly for a lot of people, its message really hits home. But what about that other quarter?
Well, here's a little taste of the criticism. One reviewer calls it inane garbage, saying the super simple sentences sound like they were written by a robot. For some readers, Meursault isn't some deep philosophical figure. He's just a boring guy in a story where nothing really happens. And then you get the complete opposite take. This reader found the book's sharp, direct style to be beautiful and overwhelming. They argue that it's not really Meursault who's on trial, it's all of us, forcing us to look at our own lives in a world that is just, totally indifferent to us. And the guy who wrote this, Albert Camus, his life was just as fascinating. He was born into poverty in French Algeria and went on to become this huge literary figure. He was also a passionate human rights activist who fought against the death penalty, a theme that you can feel all through this novel. He won the Nobel Prize in 1957, and then, just 3 years later, he died tragically in a car crash. Which really brings us back to the central mystery of the book, doesn't it? After everything, who is Meursault? Is he a monster, a sociopath with no human feelings? Is he a philosopher, bravely living a life without illusions? Or is he just a stranger, an outsider who gets condemned because he won't play along with society's comforting lies? The book doesn't give you any easy answers, and honestly, that's exactly why it's still a classic.